You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to Thursday, which some would call Friday Eve, and others would call the day after the thing we did in Tuscaloosa yesterday. Dang, that was a long night, but I'm back. Mics are working at the very first second of the show, and Butters is on the board. Hey, buddy.
Hey. I feel like we're just now finishing yesterday.
Yeah, didn't we just sign off? I swear.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But yeah, I still can't believe that you and I went through all the steps yesterday to get everything laid on, and then the first minute of the show decides that the system crashed and I had to reboot. Whoop, whoop. What do you do?
You roll with it, and I will give a huge shout out. We got the texts that came in, pouring in. Butters, hang in there. What
about Phil? Phil, hang in there. I'm on the far end in a conference room in Tuscaloosa.
They know you're helpless down there, but very supportive texts coming in.
Awesome.
And so that's
awesome.
That's great and much appreciated.
That's the audience we've got, though, man. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that anything I said was remotely coherent yesterday as I tried to figure out. And then, by the way, a little, we're going to have some random guests that no big deal.
Yeah.
We're just,
They just popped in.
Just the senator.
That was cool.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was good.
Yeah, we had guest callers. We had pop-in guests. It was a good day. It was big doings for Rightside Radio.
Did you have fun down there?
I did. Am I tired? I am. But we'll talk about it more in a minute. In the meantime, got a great show laid on for you today. So several things. I just know that there's people calling in, and they're not it's like the big official call. But I know for a fact that Allie from Athens has got something she wants to say about last night's debate that she heard that really triggered something for her. She's going to call in somewhere around 2:50-ish, and that's going to be good. And then 3:30, Emily Jones from Moms for Liberty is calling in because they got a big announcement, and I'm pretty stoked for them. I'll let her make that announcement at 3:30 when she calls in. And then at 4 p.m., we're doing the second round of Butters and Lee. So, yeah, Lee from Huntsville joining in and taking that segment we do where the crew asks me questions, I ask them questions, and I enjoy that. Anyway, Butters and Lee at 4 o'clock. And then I'm also going to take the first little bit. I'm calling it a mini dipper. Just be aware. Yesterday, listen to me, John from Huntsville. Extra points. Mini dipper, Bo. Mini dipper. Anyway, I'm doing a mini dipper on the debate wrap-up. I'll do that leading out here in just a minute. And then I got a triple dipper just full of stuff, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, after I do the debate wrap-up, calling it Trans-America. You might see where that's going. Trans-America. It's amazing. Y'all, it defies logic, it defies science, it defies reason. But yeah, we're going to talk about some things that are going on in the world of Trans-America and the efforts they're making to foist it on the rest of us. Number 2 out the gate, meme madness. So I didn't get a chance to do this one. I want to bring it to a sort of a full discussion today. Because it's amazing to me that you've got a guy who made a meme, posted it on social media, and he's about to spend time in jail. It didn't call for anybody to be murdered. He didn't, show pictures of someone that were considered to be defamatory. No, he just jokingly told people that they could vote online for Hillary Clinton. And I'm just trying to figure out why, with all the deception we saw on the Democrat side of things during the 2020 election, that this guy's going to jail for a meme on social media in 2016. Taking that one up as number 2 on the Triple Dipper, meme madness. And then Have you ever thought about what a dictator is? There's been a lot of talk. Donald Trump's going to be a dictator, and all the things that the Republicans want to do to be dictators. Really? How about this? What about a feckless dictator? A lot of people think of a dictator as being that tyrannical person who screams at you and subjugates you. And what about the feckless dictator who doesn't know how to make a decision and you can't get rid of him? And you're stuck with the inability to make the decisions. The results are what comes back to us. I would call that a feckless dictator. We'll talk about it. We'll bring it out more. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over here to my opening comments. So first of all, I'll just remind you guys that Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that spans a huge swath of our big listening area. Southern Immediate Care is the sponsor of the Daily Rightside Way monologue. I really appreciate them. I know for a fact they're owned by a Rightside ruffian. He's a good dude. But Southern Immediate Care, with locations like in Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. Listen, they are there 7 days a week. And I would encourage you, if you need assistance, medical assistance of any age and any time, that's right, Southern Immediate Care, they'll take care of you. And they are the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. All right, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of being in what they call the gray zone? I mean, think about it. Gray zone. Most things we deal with in life are black and white. You can see the various things that must occur or recognize the desired outcome and what must be done to get there, right? But there's times, though, honestly, when life can get a bit gray, like a murky spot between right and wrong in which virtually anything can happen. That's exactly where liberals want us right now, by the way, because they know that they can keep us in the gray, that life is without definition, and then they can redefine life. It's a dangerous spot to be in. It reminds me of an epic automobile accident that occurred in Tennessee in 1990 on I-75 between Chattanooga and Knoxville. It's a stretch of road I've traveled many times like a lot of you. Well, this coming weekend is going to mark 33 years to the day since it happened. It was a cold day in the heart of winter. A massive and unexpected fog descended on the roadway, and suddenly everything went gray. A massive transportation accident occurred on that morning on December 11th, 1990, near Calhoun, Tennessee. The sudden dense fog, it just completely obscured the visibility of the motorists. Multiple collisions stacked on top of each other, ultimately 99 vehicles, and resulted in 12 deaths and 42 injuries. It was reportedly the largest motor vehicle accident in the United States history when it occurred. And there were warnings, but they were not effective. The northbound fog lights were reportedly not working that particular day. The southbound lights have been flashing continuously for the past 3 days, and it was believed to have caused some motorists just to ignore them. Well, like I said, the fog was sudden, and one survivor described it as if a, quote, a blanket was suddenly thrown across his windshield. The accident began, like I said, on December 11th, 1990, around 9 a.m. A tractor-trailer slowed down in the southbound lanes. Its vehicle was quickly struck from behind by another tractor-trailer that had failed to slow down. Both drivers were uninjured. They quickly exited their vehicles, but around the same time, a passenger car struck the second truck, which was then struck by another semi, and that collision started a fire, killed the occupants of that car, and quickly consumed 3 other vehicles. The accident spread over to the northbound lanes, when a passenger car slowed near the site of the accident, the southbound side, and was subsequently struck by another car from behind. Y'all, these vehicles, they were struck by another, which started another chain reaction. Over the next several minutes, a series of chain reaction crashes occurred, which ultimately, like I said, consumed 99 vehicles, 12 deaths, 42 injuries. Some of the crashes set off multiple explosions and fires. The crash site, it eventually extended a full mile, a half mile each direction from where it all started. Of those 99 vehicles involved in the crash, 72 were in the southbound, 27 in the northbound. Y'all, when things go bad, they can go bad in all directions, and no one can be spared. So many of the vehicles involved in the accident were damaged or burned beyond recognition, and others received just minor damage. It was kind of hit or miss. Some of the injured received severe burns. Some of the victims were burned beyond recognition. Multiple changes had to be made to the manner in which roadside fog is then alerted to drivers. But by the time the changes were implemented, the damage was already done to those who were in the accident carnage that day in December of 1990. Well, those drivers found themselves swallowed up in a sea of gray, unsure of where to turn, left or right. Knowing of the impending disaster, some moving with trepidation, but others moving with reckless disregard. Because life in the gray, it has a tendency to get out of control pretty quickly, and oftentimes with disastrous results. So let me switch gears on you then. Let's talk about life in the gray in the figurative sense. Because that's exactly where liberals want you to be. Because when they paint life in gray tones, it removes absolutes. Oprah can tell you to follow your truth, which is as gray a statement as ever was made. If everyone simply follows their own truth, there's actually no truth. You see, truth is not supposed to be malleable. Truth is supposed to be real. It does not bend to the whims of the latest fad or step aside for the latest polls. Truth is not supposed to be gray. Margaret Thatcher, when she was Prime Minister of England, she was once confronted by a testy reporter who took issue with whatever answer it was she had provided by saying, "But madam, isn't that just the same old story?" To which the Iron Lady responded without a hitch, "Of course it's the same old story. The truth usually is the same old story." Liberals don't want you to see things in absolutes, y'all. They don't. They want to tell you that a man who was born a woman can now be a man because that's their version of truth. They want you to believe simply that because they say so, that a child in the womb is not really a child until they pronounce it so. Liberals would have you to believe that there's nothing to see here when it comes to their green energy policies, spiking up the cost of gas at the pump or making it harder to heat your home. If they tell us the border is secure, we should acquiesce because they have redefined what secure actually means in order to fit their agenda. Liberals would have you believe the Constitution and its Bill of Rights, they're just outdated. You should not lean so heavily on civil liberties that you believe are absolutes just because they say they are not. Liberals would likewise have you to believe that if they spend and spend and spend, the government will eventually be seen as the successor of self-determination, and that you should recognize, for goodness sakes, the actual need you surely must have to have the government in all aspects of your lives. Why? Because they say so. You see, for liberal agendas to succeed, they must be allowed to redefine truth. And to be able to redefine truth, they must have you standing in a gray zone, unable to see which way to go. That's why, as conservatives, we must at all times grab hold of actual principles, bedrocks, statements of truth, real truth, and not allow ourselves to be moved over into that fuzzy gray place. Things like, I believe that life begins at conception. Truth, no gray. I believe that government has a role, but a minor one, in the advancement of humankind, and that self-determination and liberty must always be the starting point. Truth, no gray. I believe the U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights are inherently just and are to be strictly construed without bending or swaying. Truth, no gray. I believe in peace through strength, that a nation must have strong borders, that appeasement of our enemies is a threat to our way of life. Truth, no gray. I believe that green energy ought to be just one part of an all-of-the-above strategy, but that energy independence, first and foremost, should be maintained, and that the green energy sector, it must be able to sustain itself without being propped up by the government. Truth, no gray. I believe that men are men and women are women, and that men cannot get pregnant, and that birthing people should actually be called mothers because that's what they are. Truth, no gray. Y'all, these are position statements. These are principles, if you will. These are what it takes to resist the liberal effort to drag you over into a gray zone where they redefine truth and implement their agendas. So nothing good comes from hanging out in the gray zone. There are indeed absolutes, but liberals, they don't want you to remember that. And that's how accidents happen. So stay out of the gray zone. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. And yes, that's exactly what they'll do. They will do all they can to try to lead you into a path where you're not sure, and then they'll bombastically tell you why they're sure, so therefore you need to get on board. I'm just telling you, find your principles, stand on them because they're rocks. And then when they try to tell you something's gray, you tell them, no, it's actually black and white, and I can see it from here. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Text lines are open, and today we can use them more because I'm not remote, so I can see your texts and do what I can to answer them. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Just had a bunch of them just drop in all of a sudden. John C. from Madison says, I remember that accident, the one I was talking about, with 99 vehicles. He said, we used to go between Knoxville and Huntsville quite often, or fairly often. Yeah, so did I, up from the Gadsden area to Knoxville. But yeah, man, that was huge. What do we got? Cameron from Decatur says, you ought to call them Big Dippers and Little Dippers. Maybe so. I called it a mini dipper. I didn't think about calling them Big Dippers and Little Dippers. That's awesome. Wiley from Gunnersville said, I missed a few days of listening, just wondered if Boomer's going to come back. He said not taking anything away from Butters, but he just wondered. And the answer to that, Wiley, no. Boomer saw a position for his family that he felt like he couldn't pass by, and so that's what they are doing. And we miss him terribly. Known him most of his life, so we blessed him and sent him on his way. But if he ever said he wanted to come back, we'd certainly have a conversation. But I think he's where he needs to be right now.
And I'm sure whoever comes next will be better than both of us.
Nah, come on, man. Don't take away. But we do have him on speed dial. We know that for a fact.
Yes.
As I came back in and didn't plug in a couple of wires for you today.
He is, yes. He is a phone call away. So
Jeff from Green Hill says, I don't think you were at the debate. I believe you were over there celebrating the Tide and winning their 30th conference champion. Actually, Jeff, no, I was not.
War Eagle.
Thank you. TL from Huntsville says, Phil, another great monologue. Truth, not relativism. Don't get lost in the gray. That's right, man. Chef Ben from Aniana. Chef Ben says, great monologue, Colonel. Could not agree more. Thank you, Chef Ben. Hope to see you sometime soon, man. I ate his food once. That dude's a legit chef, let me just tell you. Raven from Russellville says, Colonel, there is only one truth and facts don't change because of feelings. As patriots and citizens, we must stand on the truth or America's done for. You have my respect and friendship, sir. Enough said, Raven. Raven, I appreciate you, man. Thanks as always. Tracy from Athens says, amazing as always, Senator. I feel like we live in an upside-down world. What our generation always took for truth or facts is now in the gray. Yep. But we don't need to let it stay there. So, Tracy, hang in there. John from Huntsville. Phil, nice monologue. And for once, I actually watched a little bit of the Republican debate. From what I saw, it was a bash Nikki Haley party. Also, Phil, did you have a good time down in Tuscaloosa last night? Because I heard Yaffe and Dale almost got into a fight with some of the people out in the crowd. I don't think that's quite so true, no. They were too busy photobombing me as I was trying to send out live updates. I'll give you more about that in a minute. And then lastly, Francisco from Huntsville says, so who's going to do our football fantasy? I don't know. We'll work something out. Maybe we'll let John from Huntsville set it up for us since he's so good at it. By the way, John, your T-shirt is on the way. John from Huntsville, our winner of the Pick'ems. All right, taking a break. Coming right back, I got my Little Dipper. Going to do some debate wrap-up, tell you some impressions from last night, what I saw, what I didn't see, and we'll go from there. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like y'all, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, this one, Alabama. And I mean to say this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. So last night, the debate. It was. I'll be honest with you. It was cool to be there. It was exhausting to be there because it meant heading out early in the morning, getting down there, setting up shop, finding the places, having to check in, get your credentials, do all the things. They got roads blocked. You got to talk to the police officer. Yes, I'm allowed to be in here. Yada yada. And then you get into the giant room. They call it a spin room. It was not as much the spin room as you might have seen in some other places. They had this giant. Picture basically a basketball court that has been completely outfitted with extremely long tables, assigned seating. Every seat has plug-ins for computers, and you got a giant monitor at about every fifth seat, and you sit there or the fourth seat maybe. I mean, there must have been. I bet there were 100 monitors in this room, and burning up some electricity, I can tell you. But watching the debate, sitting right there, the main debate hall was in the next room, so we were like in the room next to it. And then, I started live tweeting my impressions and things that were said and quotes and the occasional short video. And then the candidates came in. All but DeSantis. DeSantis did not make it into the spin room. Apparently, this was a debate where the rules allowed the spin room to be at the candidate's discretion. So for whatever reason, discretion was a no from DeSantis. But the rest of them did make it in, and it got pretty interesting, pretty lively. At one point, Ramaswamy had somebody who was pro-Israel shouting at him. I don't know if it was a member of the press or somebody got in the room. But credentials were tight, man. Security was tight. Drones in the air, like I said, sidewalks closed off, only certain entrances for certain people. Couldn't get coffee down the hall. It was something.
Is that a Secret Service managed thing? Are they?
There was definitely a lot of security, and they definitely coordinated with the locals because there was campus and county sheriffs, there, campus police, county sheriffs, Tuscaloosa PD, but then the Secret Service, and then I think the candidates had their own personal security.
Well,
and Nikki Haley's a former ambassador and governor. DeSantis is a current governor. He's got his PSD, personal security detail. But there were a lot of guys in suits with earpieces. I don't know who they worked for, but I assume it was probably Secret Service.
Well, I mean, it can't be any more difficult than like when the Iron Bowl comes to town and the security for that.
Pretty sure it's more, but the crowds were smaller. How about that? You're not having to get 75,000 people out of Bryant-Denny Stadium. But so here's my initial rub on it. All right. First of all, I say kudos to News Nation, which was which is one of the newer news networks out there that landed this coup and got a major GOP primary debate. And so they hosted it, and they had the all-female cast, Megyn Kelly, who everybody remembers from Fox, who now has her own independent show, Elizabeth Vargas, who I think was with CNN for a long time, is now with News Nation, and then Eliana Johnson, who's with, I believe, the Washington Free Beacon. Anyway, the three of them did a pretty decent job. Megyn Kelly was the ringleader. It was obvious. She was the one who comes out speaking first. She's the one who announced the rules, and then she's also the one who. I saw the others try to do it when it was their line of questioning, but she's the one who a lot of times had to say, "Let's get it together here. Let's bring it back, please." And there were times when the moderators, it wouldn't have mattered who it was. God bless them. There was no getting control of the moment. You had to let it play out. But for the most part, I would say they ran a pretty decent ship. In my estimation, having watched all the debates, I think I've watched them all. This was the best one. By the way, I'm not counting the Gavin Newsom, Ron DeSantis debate, which to me is the best debate I've seen, and I can't tell when. I loved it. There was no crowd applause. There was no showboating. There was just some serious liberal versus conservative policy positions back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with a lot of good one-liners thrown in too. But last night was for a presidential primary debate was one of the better ones that I've seen. And again, like I said, kudos to the media, to moderators. I will say, okay, so people are going to ask, so who's the winner? First of all, it depends on what you want to call a winner. But in my opinion, looking for substance, looking for potential electability, looking for trying to raise a profile to the point of being considered by the electorate, I'm going to say Ron DeSantis had the best night. Had the best night because, A, he fended off attacks really well. He didn't get baited into much, and he gave as good as he got, if not better. And he was, I would think, more substantive in his responses. Who was the loser? I think the loser was Ramaswamy. Now, some are going to say differently, I'm sure. Some are looking for that punch. I want that punch. I want somebody who casts the best insults. I don't. I don't mind somebody poking and prodding and trying to draw you into a fight or telling you why the bill you signed was a bad one or whatever. But Ramaswamy just got he had these super canned, prepared personal insults, like telling Nikki Haley that she couldn't find things on a map that his 3-year-old could find. That's beyond the pale. Or shouting down Chris Christie and telling him to get off the stage, go get a meal, and get the hell out of this campaign. I mean, you look at it. Oh yeah. I mean, he was no holds barred, caustic and insulting at times, and not a little bit. Now, the person who had some of the best, how would I describe it? Who had some of the best and the worst commentary would be Chris Christie. I mean, Chris Christie looked relaxed on the stage. He has the ability to be the bully who looks like he could care less what you think, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And kind of leaning on the podium and just saying, y'all going to ask me a question tonight or what? But then he would just like launch into some, he jumped all over Ramaswamy. He jumped on DeSantis a few times, but he and Ramaswamy got into it like, I don't mean like a little bit. I mean like at one point, let me find my quote in here. At one point he looked over at Ramaswamy and said, oh shoot, where I circled it, here it is. He said, "You're the most obnoxious blowhard in America, so shut up for a little while." I mean, that's where it descended momentarily.
So do you think he's in that place where he just, like, he knows he doesn't have a chance, but he's got a stage and he might as well use it?
I think so. In fact, what's something is I was telling, so I was sitting there with all these media guys, right? The guy to my right shoulder, I mean, literally we're shoulder to shoulder. The guy to my right shoulder is with a Japanese media company. And just a cool guy who said he enjoyed Alabama barbecue for the first time the night before. And then the guy next to me.
The most important aspect of the debate for him.
Let's be honest.
Yes. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
That's good. But then the guy to my left shoulder works for an organization called PolitiFacts. Anyway, we're sitting there dialoguing at one point, and I said, my theory has been that Chris Christie is in this race because all the other candidates need somebody to say the things about Trump that only he will say. And it was like, no holds barred. Where's the coward? Where's the guy who doesn't have the guts to be up here on the stage? And by the way, why am I the only one saying it? Ain't nobody else on the stage willing to say what needs to be said? How about this? The guy who's heading the polls, where is he tonight? It was that kind of thing. But it was something. And, and I found times when I was like, oh, that was a great point. Like DeSantis had great policy points the person who drew the most applause was DeSantis. The person who drew the most boos was Ramaswamy. Actual
really?
Boos. Oh, the boos.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, and then he had not just boos, but he had the kind of moment, where the crowd went, oh, that was when he held up a sign. He literally drew with marker on a piece of paper. All it said was Nikki equals corrupt. And he held it up while he's talking. In fact, I'll tell you what he said, because I thought, good Lord, man. I mean, he says, you have a corruption problem while he's holding the sign up. says, you have a corruption problem. I think that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt. This is a woman who will send your kids to die so that she can build a bigger house. This is the problem using identity politics more effectively than Kamala Harris, and it's a form of intellectual fraud. And there's her donor puppet masters wielding her puppet right up here tonight. That was Ramaswamy last night.
Wow.
But, hang on, let me tell you this real quick, and then ask me this question. But the best response of the night was Nikki Haley to that moment, because they're allowed rebuttal, and it was so beyond over the top, right? That one of the moderators looks at Nikki Haley and said, "Well, Ambassador Haley, would you care to respond?" And she went, "No, it's not worth my time." And the audience loved that moment.
Nice.
Best response of the night.
So, with all that said, if
Yeah.
you had to stick a percentage of actual substantive discussion that occurred last night,
Yeah.
how much actual policy discussion, out of the night occurred?
I would say 65% of it was what I would call substantive policy. And I say that knowing that some of that substantive policy was also jabbed at someone else. Like, I signed a bill that said so-and-so, and you wouldn't sign that in your state, that kind of thing. That's still policy.
That's good.
And that's fair. The shut up and get off the stage and stop talking. I'm talking right now. You can have your turn in a minute. That kind of it's going to happen, but it felt like it got a little crazy a couple of times. But for the most part, majority of it was what I would say was policy. Whether they agree with each other or not, it's different, but it was still policy. And I will say this, either they were tired or they had used up all their canned insults, because by the round 4, they did it in like 30-minute blocks. The round 4, it pretty much just kind of went, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn. And they just did their policy points, and it wasn't too bad. There's my initial rundown on it, bro. And I got so many quotes from it last night. But you can go look at my Twitter, by the way. If you're on Twitter, go check it out. At Sin Phil Williams. You can also find us at Rightside Radio on Instagram. But I posted several short videos giving you blow-by-blows. I had tweets going all night long, and got home sometime after midnight last night. It was big doings. But anyway, I guess I'm glad I went.
Yeah.
It was cool.
I mean, how often do you get to go to a presidential debate?
Well, yeah. Just there you have it.
So,
and sit with the guy from the Japanese media who enjoyed barbecue in Alabama for the first time. That right there is ambassadorship. I'm just saying.
That is. And potential to bring world peace.
Barbecue diplomacy.
Or cause the next world war, depending on your take on barbecue. So, an argument over what's the
red
best
sauce or white sauce.
Yeah. Let's talk about the real important issues here, guys.
Is it cornbread or sweet rolls? That's what I want to know. All right, get us to a break, brother. We'll do that right back. We'll come back here. I'm pretty sure we got a call coming in. And in the meantime, you got thoughts on last night's? I'd love to hear it. But I think it was DeSantis number 1, Haley number 2, Christie, unbelievably, number 3, Ramaswamy coming in at number 4. That's the way I saw it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, wow, making common sense like a superpower. Hey, I got a couple more text messages real quick. If Allie from Athens calls in, we'll take her call. It was semi-official. But so John from Pike Road, by the way, just sent me a text. John from Pike Road says, Phil, this is John. I've got a good one for you. We got one of those huge tax rebate checks in the mail last week. It has our address on it. No idea who the person was it was made out to. He said, we've been here over 2.5 years. The check wasn't made out to the pet we bought the house from. They had the check, okay, I don't know what he's saying here. They had lived here 2 years. How in the world could the state send a check to a person at an address that hasn't lived at that address for over 5 years? Do they send these absentee ballots out the same way? Wow. I see what he's saying. They've lived there 2.5 years. They bought it from a family that had lived there 2.5 years prior to them. And the name on there is nobody that's lived there in the last 5 years. Great.
Okay. Well, what could go wrong?
Well, you can't say finders keepers, though. So there's that. John from Brownsboro says, Christie's shameless bid to be Haley's VP is sadly the most honorable thing I think it means dishonorable thing I've ever heard him mutter. He followed it up by admitting he would, and then his text cuts off. So, John, your text got halfway through. But hey, bro, that was one of the takeaways I was going to say. You were so right. I didn't get a chance to finish that piece up, but it was obvious that Chris Christie is trying to align himself with Nikki Haley. I mean, he even went to her. Ramaswamy's out there. He's out there, insulting her intelligence, and she's a smart lady. I've known her for a long time, and it was so obvious that he came in to the night with two mandates. One is get all over Trump, and maybe three, and then two is just go after Ramaswamy, and then number three, suck up to Nikki Haley. That was what I saw from him. In fact, his thing was over and over again. He'd say, "Well, I'm the only one up here who's going to be willing to answer your questions, so here I go." And it was so obvious what his plans were. Is she on the line? Yeah, let me grab that real quick. Allie from Athens, how are you, my friend?
I am doing well, and what I would like to do is take a couple of minutes to derail the false narrative of Mr. Ramaswamy as it pertains to weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Okay, we got about 2.5 to 3 minutes here.
We'll do it. Lord knows I know how to talk, so here we go. All right. Back in 1991-2, when there was Desert Storm, Saddam had a fleet of Iraqi planes that were ready to go invade Jordanian airspace to attack Israel, and they were loaded with Tulun, which is a nerve agent, and Sarin 1 and Sarin 2. A Christian Air Force general talked him out of it. That's a whole story in and of itself. And the coalition blew up those planes on the tarmac, and they were never able to do what they were able to do. Saddam never stopped his agenda to poison. So here's how he did what he did. Number one, he had his scientists memorize the formulas. Number two, he had 56 sorties flown of 727s and 747s that had been stripped down to the fuselage, and they were commercial, so they were never checked as far as the sanctions were concerned, and he flew the WMDs out to Syria under the guise of humanitarian, he was such a humanitarian efforts when Syria had a flood. They are in Syria. There's still some that are in Iraq. In fact, I spoke with a soldier who had been an army brat, raised in Germany, fluent in German, and he translated the German on the sides of the phosphine boxes. He had just come in from duty to tell me about what he had done. So yes, they were in Iraq. Yes, the lion's share were in Syria. And then what happened was the Israelis flew past the Russian anti-aircraft system that had been installed, and they, in September of 2007, blew up the lion's share of that, but there are still some in Syria. So this business of, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we got about 10 seconds here, Allie, but I think your point is right. This business of Ramaswamy saying it was a war against WMD that was never there is absolutely wrong. And I know that from my own personal experience as well. I talked to a former Iraqi general who told me he knew of the same planes you're talking about being loaded up and flown to Syria.
There you are. So no conservative has any business advancing that narrative. It's false.
No, you're totally right. Hey, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your experience over there working with the troops. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
All right, talk to you soon. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we'll put a lid on that right after the top of the hour and start up with Dipper number 1. Yeah, Transamerica. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it's technically time for Dipper number 1, even though I technically had a little dipper a minute ago. Y'all tracking with me? That's what we're calling them now, little dippers.
A little dipper.
I'm in a big dipper now, number 1. Just so we know, clarifying where we are parameter-wise.
So what do we use?
You're like just staring at me while I'm saying this.
So what do we use as the North Star if we've got little dippers and big dippers?
You're the North Star. I look to you for direction.
Get on with the show.
As long as you are there to push the buttons, all is well. All right, so number 1, triple dipper, Trans America. So I got to be honest with you. This one, it's just to the point of being ridiculous, and yet, some of what I'm going to lay out there for you impacts our commerce. It impacts our kids in schools. It impacts our national security. Yes, it does. The transgender agenda is just like and it is the height of ridiculousness. I will say this. One of the things that Vivek Ramaswamy said that I agree with, and I have become less enamored of his positions. He said some things that I really do agree with. I mean, I can't argue with, his feelings on election security in the 2020 election. I agree with all of it. I don't like his positions on things like, isolationism, not being there on the world stage when an ally needs us. But one of the things he says that I totally agree with is the transgender agenda is a mental health issue, is what it is. It's a mental health issue. I understand that some people are going to have predilections and desires that maybe differ from the norms, which, by the way, heterosexuality is the norm. Don't try and say it's not. Heterosexuality is the norm. Transgenderism, though, is abnormal, and it is a question of mental health, in my opinion. But at the same time, I do appreciate the fact that, it's the taboo thing. Well, you can't pick on that. You can't fly a non-pride flag. No, hey, Pride Month, don't question. Don't question, it's Pride Month. Well, I got news. We're allowed to question. We're allowed to poke fun. We're allowed to call things out. It doesn't have to be mean-spirited, but you know what? Every once in a while, you got to laugh. And I love the fact that the Daily Wire just came out with something. If you're not familiar, the guys at Daily Wire are kicking it right now. They are way beyond just, conservative content now. They're impacting culture with, streaming of kids' cartoons and, having major events. And then also at the same time, they've gotten into movies. Their movie just came out, and it's called Lady Ballers. I think you said you've seen the trailer also too, then, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
That's,
this looks funny.
Yes.
Have you watched the movie yet?
I have. Is it available?
It's
I
available
think
on streaming.
Yeah, it's only
Subscription based.
Yeah, it's only subscription. So yeah,
I got a subscription to Daily Wire. Does that count, or do I have to have a different?
I think you should be good.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I will admit I have not subscribed yet, but I'm going to do that soon and support those guys.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This article points out from Free Beacon, right? Came out a couple of days ago. It says this movie will make you rethink everything you've ever learned about women with. Yeah. Anyway, it goes on to say there are some beloved comedy classics, some of which I like, some I didn't, like Mrs. Doubtfire, Ace Ventura, Tropic Thunder, and then others like Sorority Boys and Joanna Man, that you just wonder if they could even make them these days. I don't know if they'd be allowed to make them these days in the Hollywood regime that says, hey, that's not funny. You can't do that. Well, Daily Wire says you can, so they made a movie called Lady Ballers. It's about a guy named Rob, who's a boys basketball coach down on his luck. His team keeps losing, and he says, I stayed the same and the world changed after his 8-year-old daughter scolded him for misgendering a so-called girl in her class. The movie goes on that basically he takes the men's basketball team that he coaches, convinces them that if they'll all claim they're transgender, they can enter into women's sports and win big. And they are so proud of themselves as they continue to dominate the women's fields. The bottom line is the article points out the mere existence of this movie is a middle finger to the cultural overlords who deign to decide what topics we're allowed to joke about. And I agree with that. They need to lighten up. They just do. Because you can't tell me that 6'4", 230-pound dude with broad shoulders now grows his hair out, he gets to call himself a woman, is not a little bit ridiculous. Like there's not a comedy sketch built into that. Like you can't find any number of Saturday Night Live spoofs on that if you wanted to. I mean, for the love, let's just call it what it is. It's ridiculous, and it's also a mental health issue. But then there's times when the trans agenda becomes so pronounced and it invades our lives, whether we want to believe it or not, it begins to impact us. What am I saying? Well, when things like when government gets involved, or when they change the laws to provide what we would call in the legal field a protected class, or when they tell students you have to believe a certain way, or when they interact with your kids without you knowing it, or for that matter, when the U.S. military allows people in the military to claim transgenderism and suddenly become non-deployable. All these things impact you and I. So it's one thing for them to have their lifestyle. It's another altogether when their lifestyle is thrust upon us and we don't have a say in it. For instance, here's one. How about in California? Oh, it's California, Phil. Yeah, but it's still one of our states. In California, the story came out on Daily Caller a couple days ago. So the new California law, slated to go into effect on January 1st, will mandate that stores must sell children's items in a gender-neutral section. So what they're saying here is that, and I'll tell you what, here's a part of the text of the law itself. A quote from the law says, quote, "Keeping similar items that are traditionally marketed either for boys or girls separated makes it more difficult for the consumer to compare the products and incorrectly implies their use by one gender is inappropriate." So the baby doll needs to be in a section where boys can see it too and maybe want it, because the toys should be gender neutral. But they're not. So the little pink ruffled ballet outfit needs to hang next to the cowboy outfit because, gender neutral. But they're not. But what this is an attempt by government to force retail to now have to conform to a narrative. And then the consumer goes in and the kids are led to believe that all the toys in their section, that thing right there, I must want that too because it's in the children's section, not the boys' children's section. What you got?
So I'm curious. I've never thought about this, but what colors do you use at a gender reveal party?
Oh, I don't know. Gray. There's that gray again.
Gray confetti, gray smoke.
Yes.
Gray. Okay.
You may fill the explosive container with plain white baby powder. Period. That's all you get. Either that or equal shades of pink and blue. Therefore, you now have purple.
Too far.
It's ridiculous. How about when it gets into our sports? Well, this is all the rage. This is the thing. I just talked about Lady Ballers a minute ago. That's fun. Poke fun at it because it's ridiculous. Don't you feel like? Aren't you embarrassed for yourself? Do you feel like you're really a winner now? Well, I was a loser in men's sports, but then I came over and I began to win awards. Yay. Yeah, with an asterisk by them. But how about this? A biological male who identifies as transgender reportedly complained about being embarrassingly slow and out of shape after winning a women's New York State half marathon. So townhall.com has a piece came out 2 days ago. It says the transgender runner and medical student who goes by the name of K. Lucy Ravichandran ran in the Upstate Classic near Albany. and afterwards post on social media how, well, I won, but I was also feeling embarrassingly slow. What they're trying to do is talk down about, I didn't dominate. I was embarrassingly slow, actually. Well, Riley Gaines, who's made a name for herself as becoming the spokesperson for women's sports, called this person out and pointed out that the real winner was someone named Amanda Awesomes, an actual female.
Rightside Radio.
The transgender athlete then responds back to Riley Gaines, who says that basically she obviously doesn't care about biology. I'm taking all of this. My body is physiologically a woman now. I've been taking all of this estrogen. So you apparently don't care about biology. Now, apparently, they don't care about science. But see, here's what I'm saying. Yes, laugh at it and poke at it. I think we should. I think we need to call it out. I think we need to point out what we see is ridiculous and that we're not going to conform to it. But then they try to make us conform by doing things like affecting our retail sales. Or for that matter, destroying our daughter's ability to compete. We got more of this. We do. I mean, like several things more. I'll tell you what, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back, and then I got to weed through this stack and see which ones I'm going to get to, not the least of which is the one. I think I need to pull up the one on, the Department of Defense policies on deployments. Yeah. This is going to curl your hair. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just y'all, I'm saying, like making it cool to be a conservative. Hey, I'm in this number one, the true number one of the Triple Dipper here, Transamerica. Okay, like I said earlier, yes, it is perfectly okay for us to go, that's just ridiculous. That looks like a Saturday night skit, and you're calling it real. You know, it is. There is nothing wrong with us laughing and poking fun at life around us, and I don't mean like in the kind of like bullying kind of way. I'm just talking about the kind like where you realize that comedians and funny movies and things like that. That's okay. It just is. You know, it just is. But they don't want it to be. You can't laugh about that. This is serious. Well, I tell you where it gets serious is when, without even a say-so, we're just told we will conform. I'm not conforming. That's not the way I believe. I'm not believing this. Okay, well, you don't have to believe it, but we're going to make your retail stores change the way they do their layouts of their goods. We're going to make your schools change the way they present things to children. We're going to make sure your counselors know that they have to report things not to the parents, but to the state. We're going to make sure that, oh, by the way, your own Department of Defense says that service members who enrolled or enlisted in the military to protect and defend, to uphold and support and defend the Constitution, to fight the nation's wars, they don't have to be deployable as long as they want to declare transgender. Then why are they in the military? Why would you do that? Why would you join the military? Oh, I know, so the taxpayers can pay for your surgeries. That's exactly why. Here's an article. This is from Real Clear Defense. By the way, Real Clear Defense is a Real Clear news site. This is legit news. Story came out in July of this year. I don't know why I didn't see this. At Womack Army Medical Center, and there's a bunch of y'all out there that are paratroopers, and if you were in the 82nd Airborne or at some point going through Special Forces training or something else at Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty, you know about Womack Army Medical Center. That was the major hospital there. I mean, this is the home of the airborne, y'all. This is the home of special operations. But transgender soldiers receiving hormone therapy may avoid deployment now for as many as 300 days. 300 days for a self-inflicted wound. The memo, first obtained and published by an organization called the Dossier, states that most service members, quote, will require up to 300 days to be stabilized on cross-sex hormone therapies, and they will remain in a non-deployable status during that time. It goes on to say the timeline, though, also depends upon when the service member is, quote, clinically stabilized, meaning it could take longer than that. It goes on to talk about the fact that at Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg, the memo said that upper surgeries can be performed and is a covered benefit. So you can cut the breasts off of female soldiers for free on the taxpayer dime at Womack. But the surgeries could not be performed at Womack to include what is often referred to as bottom surgeries or voice feminization surgeries. Those are not covered. It does say, though, that all transitioning service members will be offered voice and communication therapies. Okay. They got a whole wing at Womack Army Medical Center dedicated to this now? What the heck? The memo said that facial body contouring could be performed at Womack Army Medical Center. So we're going to allow cosmetic surgeries. We're going to allow mutilation surgeries. We're going to allow therapies. It also says, though, that facial hair removal is considered cosmetic.
How does this make the military a better fighting force?
Well, don't you understand? When you have an inclusive military where everybody feels like they're welcome and nobody could ever be offended,
everybody's not welcome in the military.
But climate change is the existential threat to the world. That's what's important for you to understand. Butters, you know better. Come on, man. Get with the program. That's where we are, dude. I'm just saying, you and I both had our time in uniform, and I am just like sitting here just fidgeting. The memo said, by the way, it could take between 9 to 18 months to complete a gender transition. During that time, a service member can request an exception to policy so that during the time of the transition, they could use self-identified gender standards for uniform, grooming, fitness testing. as well as self-identified gender billeting, bathroom, and shower facilities. You know what that means? I feel like a female. I want to sleep in the female barracks. But you just started your transition therapy last week. That's okay. This is how I identify now. And oh, by the way, my pronouns are now Zer. But how does that work in an official memo? I don't know. You figure it out. But we have you enrolled in the military under this name. Yes, but it's now that name. Okay. And oh, by the way, you're taking a shower with the females.
Yeah, and then you take that to the Navy. We got limited space on those ships.
Dude.
Just saying.
This is, and they wonder what, I mean, anyway, yes. So this transgender agenda, oh, by the way, it also impacts your military readiness because it's madness. It's absolute madness. And I had one texter that texted in a minute ago. I want to make sure that I saw it. Laura from Arab. It's not a mental issue. It's sin on the rampage. Gain of function, just like COVID. Billions are made, and the left is laughing all the way to the bank. We have to take a stand against this evil. Laura, I don't argue the fact that it's sin, but it can be sin and a mental issue all at the same time. That being said, it's a mess. And I think that's only half my stuff here. And I got a caller calling in, so we'll take that in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, Transamerica. Whew. We'll be right back. Out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Y'all, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. This show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, way over to Tuscaloosa, and back over to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in, just for good measure. I'll tell you what, somebody who's making a difference in her part of the world is our friend Emily Jones, who is the head of Moms for Liberty, the Madison County chapter right here in our area. And she and I were texting back and forth this morning, and it kind of fit right in. So here I am talking about trans America and the fact that there's this agenda out there that we could say we don't agree with it, but they're still going to put it in places where it impacts our lives. And one organization and somebody who are doing something to try and restore common sense and draw attention to the realities of what this can do is the organization of Moms for Liberty and our friend Emily Jones, who I believe has an announcement. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the phone and say, hey, Emily Jones, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are y'all doing today?
We are doing good. What you got going on?
Well, it's right in line with what you've been talking about, and you mentioned Riley earlier.
Yeah.
So we have officially locked down all the details to have our event in February, which will have Riley as the keynote speaker.
Outstanding.
So it's going to be on February 17th here in Madison.
Outstanding. So this is going to be like a dinner or what kind of event you have?
It's primarily a dinner. If you are a sponsor of the event or if you're a member of Moms for Liberty, you can go to the VIP cocktail event, which is going to be in the home team locker room. They call it the clubhouse, but it's the locker room for the home team, Trash Pandas. We're going to have a VIP social down there, and then we've got the formal dinner where Riley will be speaking in the Sports Med Clubhouse on the top. And then Riley obviously will be at the VIP social, and Susan DeBose will be there talking about what's the Women's Bill of Rights. She changed the name of it.
Outstanding. Well, that's good stuff, man. I tell you what, you guys are on it. And so tell us again, the details are February the 17th, you said?
February 17th. So it would be Valentine's Day weekend. So what better way to spend your weekend, your Valentine's weekend, with your loved one talking about transgender men in women's sports? I think it's perfect.
Yes, it's just so romantic. I'm sure that's going to go over like gangbusters there. No, but I do suspect you're going to wind up having a great crowd. So let me ask you this, limited seating availability, what's the scoop on that?
Yes, it will be limited seating. We can have right around 300 people total. So we are also working with Turning Point Faith. They're going to be doing a pastors roundtable right before our event, also at the Trash Panda Stadium. So they'll reserve some seats for their event. And then we're also going to have Skytree Book Fair. So anyone that's tracking all the craziness with scholastics, Skytree's the new counter book fair organization that's on the market. So they're going to be there talking. Hopefully we'll have Brave Books there because Riley's book with Brave Books actually comes out in February too. So we've got some seats we've got to reserve for all that. So definitely need to get tickets early.
That's awesome. Well, listen, as this thing develops, I'd love to have you on to talk about it in more detail. But I think this I guess will also be a fundraising opportunity for Moms for Liberty. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's good stuff. All right, what else you got going on? What agenda items you guys lobbying for right now?
Obviously, supporting Susan with her Women's Bill of Rights. We're pushing really hard for school choice. We've been working that kind of behind the scenes. And then we continue to push on this library issue. I think we've got some folks calling in later this week to give an update on where we are with that in Limestone and Madison County. So we're staying pretty busy.
No,
it never stops.
No, It never stops because evil never stops. You know it. That's the
Amen
thing.
to that.
That's exactly right. We cannot be idle because the enemy's not idle. And I just really appreciate y'all. And all right, listen, we're gonna stay in touch. I'm gonna start making my plans to be a part of it. But you let me know what we can do, and look forward to seeing you before then, I hope. But February 17th at the latest. How about that?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, Emily Jones, Moms for Liberty, got an event coming up with Riley Gaines. We appreciate you. That's good stuff. Hey, listen, by the way, that's part of the thing. So as I'm going down this litany of egregious actions that the trans agenda is putting in place, like, oh, by the way, the Department of Defense allowing people to be in uniform and yet non-deployable simply because they want to be of the opposite sex, and then giving them taxpayer-funded surgeries and therapies, or women's sports constantly being invaded by men who couldn't win on their own side, so they switched gears and decided they wanted to be a woman and try to compete in the women's sports, or, in California where they're mandating that retailers have to redesign the layout of their goods because, you got to have it in a gender-neutral format so that no child feels like they were forced to buy a gender-specific toy. But then, but then you find there's organizations out there like Mom. I take hope, I take heart in folks like Moms for Liberty that is willing to get busy and say, not on our watch, because that's what it takes. We can get irritated. We can laugh at. We can say things are not supposed to be that way. We can say, I don't believe that way. But then what do we do when society is being assaulted and redesigned to fit somebody else's, new normal? You get involved. That's what you do. You get involved. You just start. That's the thing. You just start. Well, Phil, I don't know how to finish. You can work that part out later. Just start. But what do? I don't know. Go to a Moms for Liberty event, meet a few folks there and say, they're just normal like me. Maybe I could join them and do something. Strengthen numbers. I say go for it. Or maybe you're going to run for school board. Or maybe you're just going to go talk to the principal at your school who you know is a good person and tell them you really don't appreciate what that teacher has got hanging on their wall in their classroom. You just start. You don't sit idly by and hope that somebody else take care of it, because it may be up to you to do it for such a time as this. You just start. And if we have more people who will just start, my God, if we just have more people who would just start, they would get away with a lot less. Like, for instance, this dad. Story I pulled off Fox News came out 3 days ago. Father sues a school district for refusing to display a straight pride flag alongside a progress pride flag. Just start. Colorado father, it says, is suing the state's largest school district, claiming the staff refused to let him display a straight pride flag alongside a progress pride flag on view throughout his children's Denver school. Well, okay. Guy named Nathan Feldman. He was bothered by the fact that there's progress pride flag is hanging in his kid's school. So he went and bought one, which I don't even know what it looks like. What does a straight pride flag even look like? But he took it down there and said, I'd like to know if you'll fly this too. What does that even mean? We're not doing that. We don't have policies for that. He says, well, then why are you flying that one? Well, we have a policy in our district that allows that. The right of employees, it says, to post a rainbow flag or other signs of support for LGBTQIAS plus students or staff, because these are symbols consistent with the district's equity-based curriculum. But the district does not allow for other flags, they told him. So what did he do? He filed suit. What did he do? He just started. He just said, I'm calling that out. Because if you're going to say that you can fly that, even though a vast majority of maybe your students and parents don't agree with it, then I want to know why you can't fly what has been normal for the last millennium. You cannot say that heterosexuality, it's okay to have pride in that too. Well, you want to be proud of it? Yeah, how about this? I'm proud of it. I am proud to be a heterosexual male. What do you think of that? I am just proud. You know why? Because God made me that way. Here's one. Colorado mom posed as a 9-year-old to text a school-sanctioned crisis line to see what kind of responses she would get. Now, don't take that wrong. She was doing something that was not inappropriate. She was checking to make sure that the Colorado Parental Advocacy Network, let me phrase that, the Colorado Crisis Line was not going to do anything inappropriate. And she's a executive director for an organization called the Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. There we go. She texted into a state-funded crisis line for kids, and she told the person on the other end, I'm feeling sad. I think I want to be a boy, but I'm a little girl. I think I'm trans, but I don't want anyone to know. Well, the lady got a response back that said, well, it's okay to explore your gender identity on your own terms before you discuss it with others. And then, of course, asked, which I'm glad they asked, have you thought about killing yourself? And it led to some other conversations in which they referred the child then to a thing called the Trevor Project, which Butters looked up to me before the show started, and it's an LGBTQ plus support website, and then went on to say that they don't have to tell the child's parents. It's okay. I got news. If you are a crisis support line and a 9-year-old allegedly just texted you to say they are feeling suicidal and you're saying you're not going to tell the parents, well, you're liable, in my opinion. Lawyer Phil's telling you right now, you are liable at that point if something were to happen to that child. But then to go ahead and say, and oh, by the way, it's okay to feel trans. We can help you with that, and we don't have to tell your parents about that either. Lawmakers in California apparently allocated $20 million to create the crisis support hotline in response to the 2012 Aurora Theater massacre. The statewide behavioral health system, you look at it and go, I get it, you're doing a good thing, and it's just really not going down the roads it's supposed to go. So there's that. How much time have I got for the break? I just realized I have a caller on the line. So I'll tell you what, let him know, Butters, that we're going to take a break right now, and I'll catch him as soon as we get back, all right? We'll do that right now. We will take the break. We're heading almost to the third hour. Good Lord, where'd this show go? I mean, we got Butters and Lee coming up. Holy smokes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid and conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Hey, I'm going to the phones right now. Just realized he held on through the whole break, and I appreciate it. That's Jeff Rowe from Indiana. What you doing, man? How are you?
Doing pretty good, Phil.
Good. Where are you on the road right now?
I just passed Huntsville.
Okay.
Heading north.
Okay. Almost to the line. Hang in there.
Not quite to Bucky's yet.
Not quite to Bucky's. The landmark of landmarks.
Exactly. Everybody knows where that's at.
That's right. What's up, man? What you think about?
Hey, if you were making the movie, what's going on with the military? I mean, if you were redoing the show of MASH,
yeah.
What would Corporal Klinger have to do to get a Section 8 now? I mean, since he'd probably be sleeping in a tent with Houlihan now. I mean, how crazy do you have to be before you get kicked out now?
Well, first of all, Klinger wouldn't have been in Korea at all because he was non-deployable. So there's that. But what a great point. I mean, I was talking earlier about the movies that used to be made that you probably couldn't make now in Hollywood, and I bet they wouldn't be able to do that character for Klinger anymore. It's unreal, man.
Well, it wouldn't do him no good anyway. It's like, this is normal now. Man can be woman. If you want to put a dress on, hey, no problem. Look at the Admiral Levine or whatever his name is there.
Oh, yeah. Admiral Levine.
Oh,
that's and so proud of that uniform. Just so proud. But
yeah, I'm sure.
It's a great point, though. So what would they have to do to prove that Klinger deserved a Section 8 discharge if they couldn't poke fun at the transgender agenda now? What would it be? I mean, drug use?
it's a mental illness. So how bad does your mental illness? Do you have to be suicidal? Do you have to be have a Napoleon complex? Or how crazy do you have to be before they'll throw you out?
Yeah.
I mean, they should have a list of things there. I guess that now that you can have gender dysphoria, and that's perfectly acceptable. What other things are perfectly acceptable? Schizophrenic, or
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, they've lowered the bar on several things, and because the recruiting standards had to change. But I'll tell you what, too, Jeff. What really bugs me is I think it's a question of fraud. If someone were to enlist in the military knowing that they wanted to go into the non-deployable status to have the military pay for all their sex change stuff, then I would say that's fraud because you signed up to fight our nation's wars knowing full well you weren't going to be deployable when you signed up. But we take them anyway. I mean, and listen, Jeff, we wouldn't, and this is not meant to be a hit on somebody who has a physical disability, but we wouldn't take someone into the military who was not physically capable of doing the job unless they're transgender. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good deal. I mean, because now if we get into a hot war with somebody, you just got to say, "Oh, I don't want to be deployed. I think I'm feeling a little female, or I'm feeling a little male in me." So
yeah.
I want to go in the women's barracks or the men's barracks or whatever they want to do. And I don't have to be deployed. Don't have to be in no danger.
Yeah.
And I can sleep with the opposite sex, even though I'm just claiming that. I mean, that's all you got to do.
It blows me away. It literally blows. But then I tell you what, too, Jeff, while you're on the line, I'll tell you about this last story that I had in my stack. I don't know if you saw this or not. I pulled this one off of Daily Signal. But an 11-year-old girl was assigned to share a bed with a male student who identifies as transgender while on a cross-country school trip. In other words, it was an overnight trip. Parents had signed off on the overnight trip. They'll be staying in the same hotels, and they had no idea that what was about to happen was that their daughter, 11 years old, was going to be told she's sharing a bed with a boy. And the parents were livid when they found out later, but the school district is just kind of saying, yeah, sorry, it's our policy.
Yeah, well, if that would have happened to my daughter, I'd have probably had been in jail right now. Because we'd had a problem, so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak.
Big problem.
So, but this is what the agenda that they're doing right now, pushing right now, does. Is it doesn't require you to believe, but you are not allowed to question. That's the thing, and it's changing. They're trying to change society by forcing the change as opposed to anything else. It's just anyway. It's got to stop, dude.
Well, Phil. we think the people that's transgendered or whatever have mental illness. I think the people that's catering to them has more mental illness than what they do.
Not a bad point.
Serious.
Not a bad point. Not a bad point. All right, listen, man, we're about to hit the break. You be safe on the road, all right?
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
All right, you too. See ya. It's just, yeah. So it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. The Trans America. It's make it stop. In the meantime, something I don't want to see stop is what we're about to do next. We're going to take a break here momentarily and come back, and it's time for Butters and Lee. So yeah, you know the deal. I ask them questions, get their perspectives for a while, get to sit back and just listen to somebody else talk, and then they flip the script though, and they ask me any question they want to, and I just see how I do. And it can be enjoyable, and it's one of my favorite times of every single week because I don't know, it just like I get to just sit back and enjoy hearing what other people think about the issue. And I don't have to just even fear because I know we're pretty much ideologically aligned, but nonetheless, it is still enjoyable. So yeah, coming up next, Butters and Lee, and then if I can get there, I've got two other dippers, and I just don't know how we're going to squeeze that in, dude. But I did have the little dipper at the beginning. Okay, as long as we're clear. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3. And this is a time when I get to hear two of my brethren and sisterins come in and give us their opinions on things. And, it was Boomer McQueen for so many, for a year and a half. But right now, I am proud to have on deck Butters and Lee. All right, Lee from Huntsville, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. You ready for this? Another round?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm asking you both this question, and I'll probably defer to you first, Lee. So here's the question. So this is December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. All right, December 7th, 1941 was the attack on Pearl Harbor. So Pearl Harbor Day. Well, as we sit here today, so like military recruiting is at an all-time low. It's a major issue. The Biden administration likes to blame it on things like a cultural shift and saying that there's not as many eligible kids to be recruited out there right now. But what do you think is the reason that recruiting is so low, in your opinion? And if another Pearl Harbor happened, would we have enough young Americans to step up? So, Lee, you first. What you got?
Well, I think the main reason that it's low is this generational service that we have, where we have, your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your child, they're all in the service. I think that's beginning to wane because I think they're losing faith in the armed forces somewhat. Of course, this is generalities, but I think you're losing some of that that generational enlistment, if you will. And there's no excitement to get Gen Z on board. And when you said, do I think if we were attacked? I mean, you're always going to have those people who feel strongly and patriotically. So you will have some. But the same as back then, absolutely not. We would be in trouble is what we would be. Because we have an army that's, the generals have been replaced and or encouraged to be soft. And they've encouraged deviant behavior in the military, and your average young man who's going to put that M16 on and go out into the field and die for his country doesn't want to die for that.
Wow. Okay. Dang. Butters, what do you think?
I think, first and foremost, I think we've got plenty of young men and women that when the need arises, and I'm a couple of years dated, having retired in 2021 from the reserves. But at least from who's in now, they'll get the job done when the time comes. And I would say history would show that America, when the need arises, we as a society step up. As far as recruiting, I guess I would speak more intelligently from the retention side. And one aspect, you got fighter pilots, back when I was deploying, you have fighter pilots offering $200,000 retention bonuses and you still can't keep them in. That's not a money issue. That's a culture issue. And
wow.
So,
yeah.
That's a pretty big deal. And I think that culture issue leaks out in multiple ways into that retention or that recruiting problem. I still, when I left in the Navy, I still had faith that if the need arises, we've got young men and women out there, despite whatever leadership, that'll step up and take care of business.
Okay, so great answers, both of you. So I think I share both of your opinions because you called it a cultural issue, which I think is a great way of framing it. And Lee, you kind of defined some of the wokeness and the feckless leadership and that kind of stuff. All of that, I think, kind of blends together as there is an environment within our current military that is disenfranchising a whole section of society, and I think that is absolutely true. But I'm going to lean more towards Butter's opinion on the question about whether there would be enough there. I do believe that America would step up. I do believe that we would still have. It's like that rallying effort, like you saw after 9/11. I do believe that we would still rally. I think there's enough good people out there that we would have what we needed to get the job done. I just hope that we don't need it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the comedian's routine on rednecks. You know, if somebody invaded the shores and you got rednecks down there and the Marines show up and it's beer cans, you know, it's funny because there's some truth to that.
There is. War's over, baby.
But can I add that you would have I saw maybe it was an MMA fighter or a boxer or something. Someone with a badly broken nose was given an interview and he said, you know, I'd fight for Oklahoma. If they're coming, you know, if they're going to step one foot in the United States or in my state, I'm there. I'm ready. I'm going to go, but I'm not going overseas to fight these useless wars. And I think maybe it depends on where we're attacked and how we're attacked, or what they perceive as an attack on us.
Well, and that, I think that's true. Attack on the homeland, I think, would certainly rally more people than otherwise. But the other part of that too is, Lee, I look at, like, for instance, even the war in Ukraine. I think a different administration would have handled that differently and still been very involved in supporting Ukraine against Russia. But what's happening is people are losing sight or losing faith in the ability of the Biden administration to have anything reasonable to say, and they don't have a plan. They just want a blank check, and that's what's causing people to become disenfranchised with that. All right, let me.
Well, they have a blank check because they have to split it with the Democrats as it comes its way back around. That's why. That's why people don't trust it. Trump would have never gotten us in this war in the first place.
Trump didn't start the. Oh, you're saying the war wouldn't have started if Trump was still in office? You mean?
No. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I agree with that. I think that's probably true. All right, next question. Before we run out of time here. So last night's debate. It doesn't matter whether you watched it in great detail or not. But last night, Vivek Ramaswamy. He was the insult master. I mean, Christie had his moments where Christie almost felt kind of bullying at times, but Ramaswamy felt smarmy. I mean, he felt like the guy who came in designed to try and hurt your pride and cast, aspersions upon your intelligence and try to make himself look big by making other people look small. Anyway, all those debate insults, they're good clickbait, but is that what people really want? And so, Butters, I'm going to you first on this one. Is that the kind of stuff that people want in their candidate? Tell me what you think.
I think it's getting harder and harder to find people in a population and that want to have an educated conversation or know how to have an educated conversation, to have a debate. And so I think that drives at least the perception, or maybe it is a reality, that those quippy, soundbitey, all that kind of stuff. That's what we need. And unfortunately, people like watching a train wreck, and that's what attracts viewership and awareness. And it's kind of sad.
So you're saying you think that people do want to see more of that?
I don't know if it's that they want it, or they're just not. I mean, their critical thinking skills and all of those kind of things that go into listening, processing information, like actually listening to an intellectual conversation. I think it's getting harder and harder to find people that care to do that.
I don't disagree with that. In fact, Rush Limbaugh, even back when he was still in the early stages of his career, he used to call it the low information voters. They reacted to the soundbite, not to the substance. And I can see. Okay, all right, Lee, your thoughts? Do people want that kind of stuff, or don't they?
I would have to say yes in some ways, because Trump is so good at it. But he's a singularity. He's not. Ramaswamy cannot be him. So, but here's my thing too. I think Chris Christie stepping in and trying to defend Nikki Haley's intellectual honor, if you will, was dumb. If she can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
She cannot use the excuse of "I'm a woman. How dare you insult me?" That's dumb. And he shouldn't have approached it that way, like he's white knighting his way right over to her. No, don't do that. If she can't stand it, she doesn't need to run for president.
No,
but here's the at all. But here's the thing: I thought he wasn't insulting her intelligence. He was insulting her motivations behind, that she doesn't truly understand. And more, I got from that is she doesn't care about, the reasons why we're in the war, the reason, the areas, the provinces, whatever. She doesn't care enough to even know the names. She just wants to, spend our blood and treasure over there. And I happen to agree with him on that. And I didn't particularly think that was an insult on her intelligence.
No,
but I do think he kind of went too far with Christy, talking about you need to go home, which I do agree he needs to go home, but he was like, get a meal or whatever. Insulting someone like pretending they're fat, that's not going to get you anywhere. We all know he's fat. We don't need that, But the thing is, Ramaswamy is the smartest guy on the stage. He is. He's brilliant. But he comes off as smarmy because of it.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to contain his brilliance. He doesn't know how to be the normal guy. But I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you missed this part or not, but there was the part that I was thinking of was within that context of you don't even know the county. I mean, so what if you don't know how to name the regions of Ukraine? You know where Ukraine is, and you know the eastern border is where they're fighting right now with Russia. But you don't have to know every little town and river in the foreign country. But at the same time, him saying, you can't, my 3-year-old can pick them off a map better than you are. That's an insult to someone's intelligence. But then he also holds up the sign and he holds it up and it says, Nikki equals corruption, and starts talking about how corrupt she is. I mean, that's a direct assault on her character at that point.
Well, she is, but he got to be able to prove that. I personally believe that she is, but here's the thing. Yes, he went too far. He could have done this in a way that made him smell like a rose afterwards, but he went too far. And he, the insult went too far. Your 3-year-old cannot name, or maybe he has an incredibly gifted 3-year-old, but they shouldn't be able to name the provinces over there. But my thing is that what he was saying deep down, if he cut through the crap, is that she doesn't care enough to understand why, just that we're there and we need to, spend money and give the blank check. And I agree with that, but he just didn't come across that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it's fair game to say you were on the board of Boeing, and that really smacks of like some kind of collusive environment, or the fact that BlackRock supports her candidacy. I mean, that really got all over Charlene and I both. I think he took some shots that tarnished her potential, but I also think though that he went too far. Like you said, he went too far, being the smart aleck on the stage. So much so that Chris Christie told him he was a blowhard and he needed to shut up. I don't know. I think that by and large, I think people would like to see the occasional jab, but there's a too far that happened a few times last night. It's my thoughts. All right, I just ran long with it. Let's go ahead and call that round one. We're round one with Butters and Lee. We'll go on to the break. We'll come right back, and this is the part where we switch gears, and they ask me a question, and I just wait with bated breath to find out what it is. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid and conservative and just plain right. Wow. Like saving the world one soundbite at a time. Right back with Butters and Lee. Apparently we ran along a little bit on the first section, so I don't know how much time we're going to have now, about 5 minutes-ish. But this is the part where we flip the script, and they asked me a question. I don't even know what's coming right now, but I'm going to defer to Lee first. Lee, what you got for me?
So did you see the three major college presidents, Harvard,
Yes.
And such, the interview?
Yeah.
Not the interview, before Congress? Okay. My question is, do you think that Jewish students and Jewish parents are going to start pulling back not only their money, but their students from going to these schools when they seemingly just endorse anti-Semitism?
I think they already are. I think, UPenn's president, who did such a horrible job equivocating. I mean, how easy, what a layup question. Is it against your campus policies and bylaws to allow someone to, anyway, anti-Semitism and expressing violence and calling for genocide? My God. And so there they were doing their feckless equivocations. Well, it depends upon the circumstances. Well, every moment is dictated by no. You just say we don't allow that and we're going to fix it. But they didn't do that. And then I'm pretty sure that they began getting major calls from big donors who either were sympathetic to the cause of the Jewish people or were Jews themselves. And I think that some of these elite universities are about to take a hit financially and with people. That's my thinking right there. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And by the way, it's okay to be plain spoken. That's what that whole thing missed. They're so worried about not being plain spoken that they talk themselves into a gray area and now they can't get out. That's just unreal. What you got from me?
They're afraid.
Oh, they were afraid, but now they're really afraid they're going to lose their jobs. And I think, by the way, they should. I'm embarrassed. If I were on the board of trustees, I'd be calling the president in to say, well, you just really badly represented the actual public image of this much vaunted university, and we think we can do better than you, so we're handing you your papers. So we'll see. What do you got for me, man?
So with about 2 minutes left,
Yeah.
the debate. Why Alabama never had a presidential debate?
Yeah.
Why Alabama for this one, and why now?
Why not? You like how I threw it back on you? Why not? So you're asking me why Alabama and why now?
Yeah.
Number one, I think that John Wall is the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, and he's done a really good job of raising the profile of the state party to the national level. I'm not saying anybody before him didn't ever do that, but John himself, though, has really made inroads with the national leadership and is even on national committees that help determine some of the things related to, venue selection and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. Secondly, I think it was an opportunity for a deep red state to host an event that had a national platform, and I think we proved that it worked really well. I mean, I thought it was a great venue. Laid on really well. News Nation did a great job, so I think the why now was because there is a growing sense that Alabama is the place to be. I mean, we got great people, we got great leadership. I mean, the chairman of the House Armed Services, senior member of Appropriations, both in our congressional delegation. We got Tuberville doing his thing, fighting for conservative values on abortion. We got Katie Britt's extremely popular nationwide, and then Red State and John Wall. I think all of that swirled together to bring the Republicans to the state.
Awesome.
And there's probably other factors, not the least of which is, University of Alabama is constantly in people's minds because of NCAA football, just to be honest.
Yeah.
So let's go see what that campus looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Listen, we are headed out to that break. Lee, we love you. Thank you so much for being a part of Butters and Lee today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon. There you go. Butters and Lee. Time now, 4:29, heading to a break. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back for the final half hour, heading into go home time. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, wow. Like covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful, the most awesome, the state that I love, Alabama. And I mean, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, let me tell you who else covers some major ground, by the way. That's our friends at Southern Immediate Care. So, yeah, Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of our listening area. Southern Immediate Care is like, wow, open 7 days a week. They can see all ages, pediatric all the way to geriatric. They can see everybody. You can get your shots and your x-rays right there on site. Southern Immediate Care. And, oh, by the way, that 7 day a week thing, think about what that means. We wake up on a Saturday morning feeling bad. You don't have to wait till Monday. You go online, you find the location nearest to you, you head on down to Southern Immediate Care. Folks, this is who I use personally. And I say that, in all sincerity, I didn't start using them because they advertised. I was using them, was impressed, asked them if they would advertise at that point. And they said, yeah. And by the way, they're owned by a Rightside ruffian. So yeah, Southern Immediate Care. You check them out, find the location nearest to you, all over our listening area, and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right. I tell you what, I got to take some text messages here, bro. I mean, what in the world? How many do we have? Good Lord.
Quite a few.
Was I that loquacious that I did not get back to my pernicious texters?
Man, I think that's just that's the way the week is gone.
I hate to be contumacious. I don't want to be pernicious in any way.
Quit sounding like a lawyer.
That could almost be determined as salacious. Okay, so Becky from Shelby County says, if Trump's elected, I'd like to see Vivek Ramaswamy be his press secretary. Now that would be fun. that would be fun.
I mean, really, does it matter? I mean, with what we've seen the last handful of years from press secretaries, does it?
There's nowhere to go but up.
I mean, it's better than Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah, I think Vivek. There's no way they could out-talk him. He could destroy people. That would be funny in the press room.
I like it.
Andrew from Tony, Alabama says, when I was deployed to Iraq in 2008, I met a civilian contractor who told me he had been in the warehouses in Baghdad and other areas where WMDs were being stored. They were not there at the time, but he said you could see where they were stored. I believe you, man. I absolutely. By the way, thanks for your service. John from Brownsboro says, apparently his text got lost and part of it came through late. So he had said, what I meant to say earlier was he came to the defense of Haley, talk about Christie. He came to the defense of Haley. It was honorable. It was his statement that legislators, advisors, and generals would dictate his decisions that burned the shred of respect he earned. Okay, fair enough. Brian from Athens says, looks like the Tannerite sales are going to go up if Butters is right. What did you say earlier that caused that? Tannerite sales. Tannerite, man. There's some folks I know that have used Tannerite to have some fun moments and got a little carried away, and let's say that the sheriff's department got phone calls.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't either, but okay, nonetheless. Ryan from Hazel Green says, I think they're the gender reveal stuff. That's what it was. Yeah. He says, I think the gender reveal would be rainbow colors. It's a they. Brian from Hazel Green. He says, I feel like plain white baby powder would be just considered racist. Oh, you know what?
Very good point.
Very good point. Marcus from Huntsville says, back in my day, if you did something to yourself to make yourself non-deployable, there was a decent chance you're going to be discharged and subject to UCMJ. No doubt. No doubt, Marcus. Thanks for your service, too. Devin from Brownsboro says, sitting here thinking, when is Phil going to make another on-air bet with Butters this time? Kind of missed the bet you had with Boomer and the loser had to eat donuts. Actually, it was the winner had to eat donuts. The winner ate donuts while the loser had to do push-ups in the studio. Maple bacon donuts. I'm not sure if you're aware, Butters, but the official food of Rightside Radio is maple bacon donuts.
Maple bacon donuts.
Yeah, they're pretty epic.
As long as I can have syrup on them.
Oh, my gosh. Amy from Rainbow City says, by the way, she's newly appointed to one of the local library boards. I think she was appointed by Representative Mac Butler.
Nice.
Says, yesterday I took in 30 requests for reconsideration forms on transgender books in the children's and teen sections of the Gadsden Public Library. Wow. Said, I'm planning on taking in 40 plus more separate forums on other transgendering and drag queen books next week. There's a clear agenda, even in small town Alabama. Yeah, I no doubt. Well, go get them, Amy. Let us know how it goes. Brian from Huntsville says, he says, LGBTQ plus, I have asked many what it means. I've never gotten a straight answer. Get it? A straight answer. He says, after a female to male transition paid by us, do we also pay for their razor blades for the gas mask integrity? Yeah, no doubt. Raven from Russellville says, I was offended the majority of the time I was in. Military he's talking about. Seemed to be okay then. Why not now? Just saying. He says, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. This I believe. Salute rendered, Colonel. Outstanding. Appreciate you, Raven. Robert from Huntsville says, you become undeployable if you vote conservative now. There's that. And then Charlie from Huntsville says, Klinger was not gay or trans. He was merely wearing women's clothes, so they were thinking he was crazy. He could get a Section 8 to get out of Korea. Charlie, I know. I was there. I watched. MASH was my favorite show. The point being, though, that back then his behavior was considered crazy, and nowadays it's considered normal, don't question it.
Could you even make that show today? Like the whole show?
There's no telling. A female character named Hot Lips, a male character who cross-dresses, and it's considered crazy. And then how many other, misogynistic moments did they have in there?
Bunch of white dudes, too.
And a bunch of white dudes. Oh, and I'll tell you what else, too. And I don't know how they got away with this. Maybe that's only why it was only one season. If you go back and watch the original MASH series, the very first season only, the only black character I remember on a regular basis, and his name was Spearchucker Jones. And I'm looking back at that thinking, God almighty. Even back then, I thought, how'd they do that? Yeah. Hey, let me jump on this topic for a few minutes. This is my second dipper, so I'm getting a little dipper and two big dippers, sort of. But here's the thing: this story's got to be told. We've talked a lot about the fact that social media has been abused in terms of conservative positions being suppressed, or narratives not being allowed, or for that matter, even just flat out censored, with the government treating it like it was their plaything to come in and change things around and to request certain things be taken down. And yet so much of America now gets their information off of a social media platform, and not just a TikTok video. I mean, there's actual news links to stories where you can find them and you realize, oh, I want to read that story. So that being said, you look at it and realize the importance of social media. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, they also have noted that social media is, in many ways, the veritable electronic town square now. It's where ideas are exchanged, people talk, things are said. So when does free speech stop there? Well, it's not supposed to stop there. But have you heard the story about a guy named Douglas Mackey? Have you heard the story, Butters?
I have not.
Douglas Mackey, he's 33 years old. He was convicted in March of this year because in the year 2016, when he was in his 20s, he thought it'd be funny to put up a meme that had a picture of a lady standing, and I don't know if he's racist or not. All I know is he put up a meme. It had a picture of a lady, happened to be a black lady, standing next to a sign that said something like African Americans for Hillary or something, but it said you can vote online. It said why wait in the line? Cast your vote by text, and it gave a phone number. And they're trying to say that people fell for it and that it in some way suppressed voting. He was convicted this year of spreading fraudulent messages and advertisements on social media, and he's looking at spending the better part of a year in jail. And this has gotten a whole free speech conversation going. The guy puts up a meme on social media, and now he's being convicted. He was convicted in, what month was it? March of this year, I believe. So here's the thing. That by the way, CNBC wants to portray it as he was trying to suppress the votes, but they do admit in their article, it's not immediately clear if anyone failed to vote as a result of Mackey's, they call it scheme, because CNBC is all in the tank for this. Prosecutors said that 99% of the texts that were received by that number that was sent anyway, they don't. What I'm trying to say is they don't know for a fact that anybody didn't go vote. So they can't say for a fact that it did. They can just say he conspired to make it happen. Well, story here on Reason.com. It took an FBI investigation, a 3-week trial, and lots of taxpayer dollars, but the government finally got what it wanted. A Florida man is heading to federal prison. Actually, you know what? He was just convicted in October. So a Florida man is heading to prison for disseminating memes during the 2016 election season that prosecutors alleged, quote, deprived people of their constitutional right to vote. They don't have any names. They just believe that it happened. And it says, however you feel about Mackey, that's the guy's name, Douglas Mackey, Mackey's obnoxious brand of politics and his feeble attempts at comedy, the case has become about a lot more than just him, raising questions about protected speech, over-criminalization, and a politicized Department of Justice. This is what they're focused on at the DOJ right now. Here's how they convicted him. Because, you do have to have a law to go by. The government leveraged a law from 1870 that is still on the books. It's over a century before Twitter even became a thing, right? That legislation was passed in 1870 to stop the Ku Klux Klan from trying to prevent black people from voting, as they were known to do back then. It says, according to the indictment for this guy Mackey, the DOJ alleges that he, quote, conspired to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate one or more persons in the free exercise and enjoyment of a right and a privilege secured to them by the Constitution. We're looking at a guy who in his 20s did something immature and foolish and who was looking at spending some serious time in jail. However, Butters with the sound effect. There it is. I will say this. There is hope on the horizon. Last article for the break. Douglas Mackey. So that happened in October. They immediately appealed because upon the conviction in October, he was being sent to jail. And yet the appeal was still, about to kick off. So in a decision right now, it says, and this article came out yesterday, day before yesterday, in a decision that shows some consideration of free speech rights, a federal appellate court has now halted the 7-month incarceration of Douglas Mackey. Mackey became the focus of the legal proceedings I just talked about, yada, yada, yada. Says the stay of his sentence was signed by Judge Omar Williams of the U.S. District Court for the District of Connecticut. Mackey will now formally surrender, but the district court will then set guidelines for his release, and any future detention petitions can be made without prejudice. And what happened was basically the government said, no, we want him in jail now. We want him in jail now. We want him in jail now. And the court said that it appears that he does have a substantial and debatable issue that may, if ruled in his favor, invalidate the conviction. In other words, you don't let a guy out because you recognize it was overwhelming evidence that he was an axe murderer. You don't. The guy's not a harm to himself or others. The guy's also got a position that very likely could get overturned on appeal. And so they're saying, okay, you're not going to go to jail right now. That's a win. That's an appellate win. And that also signals to the prosecution, you better get your act together at the lower court level because we see this as being something that may not stand up under appeal. A meme, dude. A meme. It's
crazy.
It's a meme. I'm just saying. It's just obnoxious. All right, let's take the break. Take the last break of the day. I'll get a few more text messages when we come back. And we are there. End of the day. Go home time on a beautiful December day that feels more like spring. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Hey, I'll tell you who else has got a ton of superpower common sense. That's our friends at the Elm Foundation. Y'all ought to check them out. They really should. So the Elm Foundation, ELM, Elm Foundation. They're based out of Huntsville. They're a 501c3 that is using what I would have to refer to as conservative principles to help restore quality of life to people. And they're not like a government organization slinging money at something hoping it sticks. No, this is like an organization that specializes in getting people off the streets, of helping restore sort of a sense of self-worth through having a quality work ethic, giving them, by the way, the things they need to get the leg up, but not just a hand out, it's more of a hand up. And they're actually walking them through the process with accountability, making a plan, having milestones. Folks, it's changing lives. The Elm Foundation, we had them in studio a while back, did a great interview, love what they're doing and what they stand for. But so check them out. The Elm Foundation, that's ELM, and their website is elmhsv, because they're in Huntsville, elmhsv.org. And by the way, this is year-end giving time. A lot of folks out there, you're thinking, okay, I want to give to some charitable organization at the year-end, and that's great. You might want to consider the Elm Foundation. Go to their website, elmhsv.org. And by the way, if you talk to them, tell them you heard about them on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that very much. Got a bunch of texts. Wow, I didn't even get to all of them. We're getting smoked on the text today, bud. John from Huntsville does have the grades in. Phil, you did a pretty good job today, so you get a solid A. Man, he's rough on me lately. Pretty good job today, so you get a solid A. Also, I like the term mini dipper a whole lot better than little dipper. Well, daggum. He says, because I came up with the mini dipper. Oh. Lee from Huntsville was going to get an A+, but she just had to sneak in a Roll Tide, so she gets a B+. Butters did such a great job today, and he even threw in a surprise jackassery sound effect, so he gets an A++. However, Emily Jones also gets an A++, so Butters had to share first place trophy today. Congratulations, and go Knowles.
I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
That's 2 days in a row for you.
Yes. And I would, speaking of Emily Jones, I would like to point out, I did go find the link to her event in February, and it is on the resource page on the website, rightsideradio.org.
Awesome. Outstanding. Yeah, go check it out. The resource page on rightsideradio.org, and all our other stuff's on there too. So yeah, check them out. Outstanding, Butters. Thank you so much. Gary from Decatur, this is why we have to take the left wing very seriously, rhetoric very seriously. They have made the laughable scary and the scary reality, and it's getting worse every day. Wow. Man.
Well said.
Well said. Anita from South Huntsville, there was a gag video that went viral made by somebody explaining, quote, did you know you can change your cell phone by microwaving it for a minute? Spoiler alert, you cannot, and it will destroy your phone. Oh, charge your cell phone, not change. Charge your cell phone by microwave. I was thinking, how can you change? I get it. Some people fell for it. Now I wonder if the maker could be held liable. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Scott from Russellville, question, if the meme highlighted whites and targeted Republicans, would it have been a problem? I'll leave that one for speculation. JT from Lacey Springs says, imagine the sitcom All in the Family with Archie Bunker in today's snowflake society. Oh, I know. And the thing is, they made Archie Bunker out to be sort of a caricature kind of guy. I mean, he was not to be taken seriously in terms of real life. He was a parody of what is out there, but it didn't make him look like the good guy in society. But at the same time, no, you probably couldn't even do that nowadays, because it would inflame somebody, trigger somebody, cause them to have to go to their cry rooms. I know it's ridiculous. Missy from Faulkville says, I might have missed it, but what about the female Democrat that put out the same kind of meme? No charges for her? I don't know what story we're talking about. Missy, send us a storyline, and I'd love to follow up and know. I don't know about that. Mark from Tony says, God has given our government over to a reprobate mind. I hope not, man. I'd love to believe we're reclaimable as a nation, corporately. All right, listen, there it is. Big doings. Rightside Radio back here tomorrow at 2. You guys have an amazing night. We'll see you tomorrow.